Hey there, guys. How's everything? So today we're gonna start our second session in HTML. Just want to do like a quick sound check. You guys can hear me? Just give me a thumbs up or perfect. Okay, we're gonna do the second session from the HTML, and we're gonna touch a little at the end of today's class on CSS, how you can actually get the CSS working with your HTML page. Hopefully by today that you're getting familiar with Visual Studio Code. We're going to use it again as the main editor in our development today. And we're going to explore more tags, HTML elements and tags. Yesterday, we took a look at the heading tags, the paragraph. Today, we're going to go over how you can create lists in HTML. List and item, for example, or services in your web page. Lists, you see them a lot in web pages. And also we're going to take a look at images, how you can add images to your web page, and also how you can use links to link to something else or an external web page. Let's start, and I'm going to start by sharing my screen, and you can go to that web page and type in this code to access the slides or to see the slides. So the web page is joinpd.com, and this is the code that you need to enter to see the slides live. Okay, we got one student connected. And of course, at the end of today's class, we're gonna play Kahoot to make a quiz for you guys. So we'll see how much information you get from today's session. And of course, we're gonna get the first place and second place and third place students. Okay, I'm gonna start the class. You should see the code on the top right of the screen, which is this code if you want to join. And yesterday we covered the history of HTML, what is HTML, and the page structure. We went over the page structure. Anybody have a question about yesterday's class? Anything confusing? You can put it in the chat. Heading, covered paragraphs, horizontal lines, and line breaks. And of course, how you can create comments. And today we're going to start from lists. Again, let me repeat this. When you create a list, it's not how the list look like. It's mainly, and when you put it in HTML, you define the list to the browser. So you're trying to explain the information to the browser, not to the user. And the browser have its own default way to view the list. And in CSS, there is 3 types of lists. The first type of list is unordered list. So you don't care about the order of this list. You want the first item to be second, doesn't matter. And an example of that kind of list, when you make a list for yourself, is like, what are you going to do today? So you list some items. What are you going to do today? It doesn't matter what is the order. You have to start the first one first and then the second. So the order doesn't matter as long as you're going to finish all of them today. So that's the first type. The second type, where the order matter. So you have to finish the first one, or this is the number 1, number 2, number 3. So they are numbered. In that case, they are ordered list. And the third type of list is definition list. Is like when you look in a dictionary, it's a word and its definition, a word and its definition, and it's another type of lists. Okay, so that's the 3 main types of lists in HTML. And mainly, it's not about how they look. You're just defining to the browser what type of list that you're using. So as I said, here we're going to go over the ordered list element and the unordered list element. So these are the two elements that we're going to go over. And keep in mind, there is another one for definition list. So what is the order list? Order list element is where the orders matter, as the name implies. Okay. You need to create the list, and inside the list, you put the list items. Okay. So to create the list, you need a tag that's called OL, short for order list. So OL is the tag name to create a list, to create the list. You can create an empty list that have no items inside it. So the element is used to create ordered list with a sequential order, where in that case, the order is matter. Okay, so the OL here, where you start creating your list. But you need another LI tag where you start listing your items. It's short for list item. So every time you put an item in this list, or in that case, in our order list, we have to use an LI tag where we start listing our items. And now the browser understands that you have 3 different items in this ordered list. And keep in mind that the list items should be inside the order list tags between the opening and the closing. Okay. How the browser will render them, or how the user going to see them, we don't care. Here in that case, we're just putting the HTML because, of course, you can change that using CSS. But the default rendering of the browser is going to be numbered 1, 2, 3, because in that case, it's ordered list. So the order is going to be a numeric order 1, 2, and 3. Okay. But again, we can change that using the CSS. Okay, let's start this example and try to test our order list and see how it's going to look like in the browser. I'm going to create a folder here. And let me rename this folder HTML2. And I'm going to open that folder with Visual Studio Code. So right-click, open with code. I can close the starting page or the welcome page. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. They're just telling me that this is the settings. I can save the settings. It's fine. Close it. Override it. Close it. So I have my folder here. It doesn't have any files. I can start creating files, but you know what? I'm not going to create the files. I'm going to create a folder here that will have my files. I will call the folder here, or give it a name, lists. So that folder will have all the examples that we're going to do related to order list and unordered list. So in the list, you have to click it like this, like you open it, the folder, and then create a file here. By doing that, you will create the file inside that folder. Make sure you see it's opened like this. And then you create a file inside it. And now that file, I can call it order list .html. So the extension is very important that you put .html. And here we go. And if you remember from yesterday, we have the boilerplate where you can put an exclamation mark and press enter. That will give you the very basic structure of an HTML page, where you have the doc type, you have the HTML tag, and you have the head and the body with some extra meta tag In that case, we don't need them at this point. You can simply delete them. They're just meta tag. One of them is to make your page look the correct way in a mobile devices, but since we don't care about mobile devices at this point, we're just learning HTML, you can simply remove them. And I'm going to give it a title. And we know from yesterday that the title will appear, or the text of the title will be on the page tab in the top. So I'm going to give it a title here, order list. This is going to be HTML order list. And if we take a look at the example, they have here an h1 tag, order HTML list. So I can have an h1 tag here. Oops, have to be a lowercase. All the tags should be in the lowercase. It will work if you put it as an uppercase, but it's not a best practice. So you should have it in the lowercase h1, and you type in order list. Again, now I need to create the list. To create the list, we need the OL tag. And if you save that, and as you know by now, you can run this in a development server by simply right-click and open the live server. You have an empty list, so you don't see anything here. You just have the h1, as you can see it now. And I have the order list, but the order list is empty. And now I can put items inside this order list. And to put items, you can simply use the li tag. And this li tag, you start adding your items between the opening and the closing of the li tag. Let's say I want to make a list of the programming languages that we are going to learn about, HTML. And you can copy this list item with the trick that I told you about it yesterday, which is the Alt, Shift, and down key, and it will copy the line for you down. And I can copy it 3 times. So I have an HTML, I have a CSS, and I have JavaScript. So here you don't see anything because I didn't save my code yet. Once I save by pressing Control S or Option S, if you're a Mac, you will see you will have your list here. And now the browser, since you define it as order list, it will understand that the order matter and it will start renumbering them. They put them in sequence. The first one will have number 1, the second one will have number 2, and the third one will have number 3. Okay. Now, let's say, and again, I'm going to repeat that spaces, it's not going to make any effect in your code. You can remove them, you can put them. Now, let's say you want to put an order list inside an order list. Let's say I have JavaScript here. It have multiple frameworks. Can I put under the JavaScript another order list? So can I put an order list inside an order list? Of course, yes. This is how HTML work. You can nest elements inside another element. So I can add another order list here, another one for the frameworks of JavaScript. And inside this order list, I can start listing different frameworks for JavaScript. Like an LI, I can say React and copy it down 2 times, Vue, JS, and Angular, JS. And let's see how the browser is gonna render them at this point. Now I have a list that inside a list. You see now how it rendered them? It will indent them underneath the JavaScript. Okay. And it's also going to mark them 1, 2, 3. So notice that any list that you will have, it will be indented. There was going to be some space here from the edge of the page. That's the default styling of the browser. And once you add another list inside the parent list, it will indent it more. Any questions here about the order list? What you can think about order list that you can use, for example, if you're creating a web page, you can create, for example, like a step, like a payment, like you're telling the user, hey, you have first create account, then you go to this, click in this button, and that will take you to the payment option. So it's a process. You have to log in first. Second, you have to do that. And finally, make the payment process. So you can list it as order list in that case, because in that case, order is matter. Okay. Any question about the two new tags, which is the list item or the order list? Okay. So this is the first type of lists in HTML. We have the second type where the order doesn't matter. It's not a big deal for us. We can have unordered list. It doesn't make any difference if I put the HTML first or the CSS or the JavaScript. So I can list them in that case where the order is not a big deal for me. So UL element is used to create an ordered list with no particular order. Okay. Each list still you can use the LI. List item is going to work with both unordered list and ordered list. Okay. And notice how the browser going to render them in that case. The browser we're going to render every single list item with this black bullet point. Okay. And of course, you can change it in CSS. But this is, again, similar to the example that I told you about creating a Word document. In a Word document, sometimes you want to make a list. Let's say you're making your resume, you're making a list where you make bullet points about your skills. Same idea here. We're creating bullet points about specific items. In that case, if you want a bullet point, we can use the unordered list. Okay. In that case, they have Apple, Microsoft, Intel. In that case, it doesn't matter if Intel comes in the first or Microsoft is the last, or the order is not a big deal for me. So let's try working with unordered lists. So I'm going to close this file. Go here, make sure that the list's open, create a new file. And unordered list.html. Again, we're going to start by creating a boilerplate. For the markup, we can create all the meta tag. And notice that each meta tag is just self-closing tag, is an empty tag. So I can remove them. And can I put a title to my page? Unordered list. Put an H1 here. And give it a title here, my heading, unordered or list. And now I'm going to start my list by simply using the UL, not the OL, the UL list. And now this currently is just an empty list. To create list items, you have to use the LI. And that LI, now I can put anything I want. I can put, for example, I'll take the same example, Apple, and copy this list item multiple times, Microsoft, and finally, Intel. So I'm listing these items, and I'm telling the browser, hey, I don't care about the order. You can just list them the way they are. You don't have to renumber them or put numbers in front of them. And save that. And now, of course, I need to close this one already. I'm not rendered that file anymore. And open that, right click, and open it with the live server. And here we go. You will notice that it have bullet points instead of numbers, because now the browser understands that the order is not a big deal for you. And it will put bullet points. Any questions? Anyone having a trouble creating this code or having a syntax error? All right.
Actually, I have a question, but I don't have any problem. This topic, I'm asking just because of curiosity. Is there any reason to not cover the definition list? Maybe we are not gonna need that much, or it's too complicated to cover in this.
No. It's the reason is you're not gonna use it that much.
Oh, okay, thank you.
It's like me personally, I don't use it that much. You can just create it. DL, which is definition list. I forget the tag for it. That's how I'm not using it. But if you search, for example, HTML list, you will see here it will take you to the W3 schools, which, as I mentioned before, it's a good reference web page to reference this, to play around. And this will give you here DL. Notice it's not using the list item anymore. It's using DT. Okay. Mm-hmm. And DT and DD. One for the title. So data title, because now keep in mind, it's like a dictionary. So it's going to show the coffee and what is the coffee is. It's not numbered. So data. So the T for the title and the D here is for the data. Title and data. Title and data. Coffee and the data for the coffee. The title is milk, and now the data for it is going to milk cold drink. And if you try to render it, because this web page you can try it yourself, and you will see here it will just indent the data, where the definition data, under the title. It's exactly like you creating a dictionary, for example, the word and its definition.
Oh, I see. Thank you.
You're welcome. But again, for me personally, I don't use them much, but I know it exists there. So if you need to use it, definitely you can, with a quick search, you'll get it, you know, the tags that you need to use them. Again, you don't have to memorize anything. At least I don't memorize most of the stuff. Again, we have Google as developer, you're gonna read a lot of documentation, Google a lot of documentation, and go and try to explore and play. That's most of your job. You try stuff and see how it's gonna look like. And many times I asked myself, I was like, okay, what if I did it this way? How it should look like? And that's part of the development. I hope that answered your question.
Yep, sure.
Okay, no problem. All right, my question to you guys, what do you guys think? Can we mix and match lists? What do you think? Can we make an order list and inside it unordered list? Or unordered list and inside it ordered list?
I think we can.
Yeah, you can. There's nothing wrong with that. And as a matter of fact, let's try it. Why not? As I said, part of being a developer, try stuff, see how the browser will react to it, right? Let's do nested lists.html. So I'm going to create a boilerplate And I'm going to call it Kona, I see your comment. I completely agree. Mozilla is a great website for reference, but it's a little bit advanced than the W3 School. So the W3 School is more beginner friendly. That's my comment, but definitely you can't take any reference that exists online. And of course, Stack Overflow. If you have a question, you will have tons of developers that they're asking the same question. You can type in, actually, I got like why the H1 tag is not working. You will have many developers asking the same questions and other developers replying to them. It's a great web page or website for developers. It's called Stack Overflow. And it's very well known. You probably know about it. All right, let's nested lists. And now let's have an H1 nested lists. And I'm going to try to make an order list. So I'm going to use an OL and try to list HTML, CSS, and finally, JavaScript. But here, the JavaScript, I want to list them as unordered list, the JavaScript frameworks that should be underneath the item JavaScript. So I can use unordered list here. And here I can put li, close it, of course. And I can put React, JS, and copy it 3 times. In that case, I'm going to put Vue, JS, and finally, Angular, JS. And these are the most popular 3 frameworks for JavaScript, for front end, of course. And as you can see, I have started my order list here. And inside the order list, I have unordered list. So I'm nesting unordered list inside an order list, where you can do the opposite as well. You can have an unordered list and inside it, ordered list. So let's save that and see how the browser actually will show that. And run this with the live server. And here we go. It's gonna run them first here, the numbers. And here, they are not black bullet points, they are circles. And the reason for that, because it is the second list, or it's nested inside another list. And this is how unordered list show, or any browser will show it if it's nested inside another list. If it's not nested, it will be the black bullet point. But if it's nested, it will be like a circle. Okay. And of course, you can change them if you want and play around, and they should look different. So I can change this as a UL and make this UL as order list. And now, since the UL here, or the unordered list, is the outer list, it should be black bullet points. See, black bullet points. And when it comes to JavaScript, I have the order list 1, 2, 3, AngularJS, Vue.js, and React.js. Okay, any questions? And again, lists are important. And every time you create a list of anything, like you're creating a web page, you listing your services, or you're listing your experience, you should use a list so the browser can understand that this is a list of items that you're listing. And until recently, before HTML5, even navigation bar, or until now, many developers using lists to identify the items that's in the navigation bar. You can't do that as well. That if you have, for example, let's say you go to any web page, let's say google.com, you see this is navigation here. I have the news, book, videos, items, and more. You can consider this as a list, where in that case, I'm just the first item is the news, the second item is the book, and third item is videos, and so on. So you can identify them as a list of links or icons to the browser, okay? Since you're defining a list of items, you're grouping them inside a list. Again, HTML is more about the structure of your page. And in that case, I want to create a structure where I want to list all my icons or all my links here. So as a developer, it's not a big deal to put all these links as unordered list in that case, because the order is not a big deal here. Okay. Now let's talk about images. Images is important to use for the web, at least. Nowadays, it's everything, images and videos. That's how modern web pages used. To use an image in your page, you have to use the image tag, which is img tag. And it's empty tag. It don't have a closing tag. Don't have a closing tag like this. This is wrong. It is self-closing or empty tag. So you don't have a closing tag for it. It takes something called attributes, and I'm going to explain what is an attribute for you in a little bit. So let's create a file and try to see how we can use the images. So this folder is for lists. I'm going to create images. Create a title plate. HTML image tag. Okay. Now I can put the image tag like this, or I can close it at the end like this. It's not a big deal. Both are pretty much the same. But let's see how the page can render my image right now. Open it with the browser. Nothing here. Why is it showing nothing? Because I never defined what is this tag, where is the image is gonna show? It's like which image I'm trying to let the user see, right? So I need to define where exactly the image to show it in that place. And to define what image you want to show in that place, you have to give this tag a little bit more information. So you need to provide some information to that tag. And the information you always provide it to any tag in any HTML tag by something called an attribute. Okay, so the attribute, you put them in the opening tag, and keep that in mind, only in the opening tag, not in the closing tag. Attributes, you add them to the opening tag, and they are extra information you're giving them to that element to guide it how it should render. Okay, so in that case, I want to tell that element which image it should load in my page. And in that case scenario, you use an attribute is called source, SRC. And you will see that the Visual Studio Code is helping you. It will list all the S, any attribute that starts with an S. But the attribute that I want to use in that case is SRC. So SRC is an attribute that you put it inside the opening tag, and at any attribute, or I would say 99% of them, the syntax of them is a key and a value, a name and a value. In that case, I'm going to use the source attribute, which is short for src, and the syntax, you want to assign a value to it, you make an equal sign. Okay, and the value should be a string, so you should have here a double quotation. So again, let's take a look at the syntax. The attribute name or key, then equal, then a quotation where you put some value here. This is the syntax of any attribute. And right now we starting with a very simple attribute, which is source. As you can see here, also this is an attribute. It have a key that called lang, which is short for the language, and we give a value of English. And this attribute saying that this HTML page should be rendered with the language English. So the browser now understand the language that this page using. Okay. So how we can add an image here? There's two types of images that you can use. An image that is in your machine, where I can download an image and put it here in that folder, and I can load it to my page. That's fine. You can call it a local image, or you can use an external image that's sitting somewhere inside a server or hosted by other machine that's not in your machine. So technically an image from the internet. Let's get an image from the internet, okay? And I'm going to show you how you can get an image from an internet. You can go to Google and search for any image. Let's say person or anything. And you go for images, and you will have a lot of images here. Again, many of these images can be copyrighted, and some of them are free to use as a developer. So you don't want to be using a copyrighted images in your web page, because then you're going to get in trouble. So there is a nice tool in the images here that Google provide you. If you click in these tools and you put the usage right, then you can filter them by which one that you can use. Creative Commons license, that means it's for creative people or creative developer, that it's free to use. So Creative Commons license, that means that it is free to use. Commercial and other license, that means they are copyrighted and you can't use them. So I will select that they are free to use. And now I have all the images that I can use. Okay. Let's open this one. Once I click on it, it's in Wikipedia, so I can visit that image. So this image is hosted by Wikipedia. It's not in my machine. I can download it. Okay. You can click use the file, or if you click here and you click in open link in a new tab, you will see here, this is the file, and it will show you where is this file exist on the internet. This is the whole URL of this image. So I can take a copy. Now, this is the address of this image, where it's located on the internet. I can take this copy, and that will be my source. So this is the image that I want to load in my page. Okay. Again, this image is not in my local machine. It's stored in Wikipedia server. But I get the location of this image, and I copy it, press Control-C, and in my page here, I can put Control-V, and this is the location. And now this image, in that case, external images. Okay. So now I have an attribute, key, and a value. And now I identify to the browser which image should be rendered inside this image tag. And if I save that and I go to my page now, and which I close it, I can close everything here. I can re-render this again. You will see the image is very big, but it gets rendered in my page, right? So this is the image that currently my web page is fetching from the internet. Undo the code here, Control Z. Control Z, it will just undo your code. Okay, that's if you're using an image from the internet. What about if you want to use an image that exists in your computer or locally in your computer? Well, I can go search for another image and try to download it. So let's go to person. Let's get the same image and try to download it. Images, and click in tool, which is this one. But I want you to get familiar how you can filter the images. Creative Commons license. And I can open the image, visit Wikipedia, and right click and save image as. And I can save it here in my desktop where I have HTML2 inside my folder here, and I can rename it whatever I want. Give it any name, person.jpg, save. Now this computer, you'll see it, this image, it's stored in my computer now, and it's have the name person.jpg. I can now comment this line because I don't want to view the online one. Just want to keep it for your reference. So you comment it by selecting it and Control /. And I'm going to here load a local image where I still need the image tag. But the source in that case will be the name of the image that I have it here, which is person.jpg. And make sure that the image is in the same folder that you have the HTML page. Because if it's a different folder, then you have to put the relative path where this image located. Okay, I'll give you an example a little bit. But let's save that. I should have the same page loading. See now, it's loading the same. It's probably less in size because I downloaded the less size image. I believe this is, I'm not sure how many pixel by how many pixel. But again, you can always edit the image with some editing tool and reduce the image. But here I have the image, which is loading it from my computer, not from the internet. And it's okay to use online images or use your own images. It's not a big deal. You can always download them and store them in your machine and render them. Or you can use their location from an external server. That's also fine. But keep in mind, if the external server went down, then the image is not going to show on your page. Okay. Let me also show you a nice web page where you can get a free images for your web applications. And it's very popular. It's called Unsplash. Unsplash, and here all these images are for free. You can search for any image that you want. For example, I want search for New York. You will have tons of images for New York that you can download them for free and you can use them in your web page. Okay, so probably you want to create like a background for your page. You can use any of these images. They are not copyrighted. They are free to use. Okay, and you just click in the download button here, and it will download the image. Or alternatively, you can click the image, and here you can select the size of the image. You want a small image, which is 640 by 4080 pixels, medium, or large, or the original size of the image. So you can control which size you want to download. Okay. So again, if you don't have the source attribute, your image will not going to render in the browser. So it's very important to use the source attribute. Now let's add a h1 tag here because I want to introduce another attribute for you. It's good to practice attribute and fully understand them. HTML images. Okay. Another attribute that you can use is called title. And you can put here HTML images section, something like that. Any string, anything you want to describe it, this HTML was. And if you save it, so this is the title attribute, this is the key, title, equal, and then you have some string here or some text wrapped up with a quotation, and it's very important to have the quotation. And now if I try to render that, let me close this, open it with the live server. It didn't make any difference, the title attribute, right? Do you see any difference? I added this text to my h1, but the h1 rendered the same. The title will only show as a pop-up to any element you will add it to if you hover your mouse over it. You notice what's going to happen when I put my mouse in the HTML. You see this small white box that appear, tell me HTML image section. That's what the title will do to you. It's like a pop-up box that will show for the user when he put his mouse on top of that element. In that case, I have this h1 here. When I put my mouse here, it's showing HTML images section. Can I add a title to the image? Of course. So you can add it here. You put a space, title, and let's add the name of that person, give him a name. Let's call him Mike Smith. And now, when I put my, nothing appear here, but when I put my mouse here, you see now I have a white box saying Mike Smith because I give an attribute extra information to the browser. Hey, when you load my image and when the mouse hover over it, please set a title for it. And that title value will be Mike Smith. So again, attribute is key, equal, then the value. Okay, common mistakes that the students do. They forget the equal sign. You see, now the Visual Studio Code, they give you a red color, tell you, indicating that there is a problem here. They forget the closing tag here, or the quotation, the closing quotation here, because every single value should start with an opening quotation and closing quotation. If you close this one, look what happened now. It will take the other quotation as the closing one, and this will gonna mess up the logic here. So don't do that mistake. When you open double quotation, make sure you close them in the right spot. Another mistake that many students do, they put this attribute not inside the opening tag. See, this is the opening tag here for the h1. Sometimes I saw students take it and they put it between the opening and the closing tag like this. That's wrong. You can't do that. And also some other students put it in the closing tag, not in the opening tag. they put it here. After this one, after closing the H1, they put it here. That's wrong. It's not going to take an effect. It should be only any attribute, which is a key value, should be only in the opening tag. Okay. So again, with images, you can use an online images or a downloaded images. You already download them in your machine. Both are fine. It's not a big deal. But what if this image, I made a mistake, and instead of person, I'm just person, like this. So I made a mistake here. See how is the browser gonna look like? It will show as a broken image. Of course, I need to save this. Oh, I'm gonna remove this text. Julie, can we download the image smaller? You're talking about the image that I downloaded from Wikipedia? Okay, so you search for the image person, images, and I click on it, visit the page, right click, and save it as image. Right click, save it as image, and that will download it. Okay, hope that answers your question. So if you made a mistake about the name of the file, now the browser can't find it because it's looking for a file called perso, and you don't have a file called perso here. So it's not going to be able to find your image, and it will look like this, which is a broken image. But look here what happened. It put the title visible right next to the image here. So it's clearly the user can understand what is this image supposed to be. Okay. Any questions about images so far? All right. Now let's talk about the alt attribute and its attribute similar to the source, similar to the title. So the image tag, we covered that. We can improve the design of the web page by adding images, of course. The image tag is used to define an image. It's just defining the location of the image in your page. But you need to give the browser some extra information through attributes, okay, which image that the browser should look for. The image is an empty tag. It means that it doesn't have a closing tag. The source attribute allows us to specify the web address or the URL of the image, and it's mandatory. If you didn't add the source attribute, your image is not going to render in your page. Okay, as you can see in this example, they have an image and they give it a source for this image, identifying which image to be loaded in this tag. And in that case, this is where Clarusway logo is hosted in the Google Drive in that case. Okay, so this is the location of the image that we want to render inside the page. The alt attribute. For the alt attribute is used to provide an alternative text. So alt is short for alternative text for an image, just in case if the image failed to load on the web page or it's not supported by the browser. Okay. Moreover, visually impaired users' browser via screen reading. Okay, this is another very, very important topic. Accessibility. When you write a code, you want to make sure that everybody can either view your page or can hear your page, because there is some applications called screen readers. So people that if they can't see the page, they run this application, and this application will read loud what's existing in your page. So if there is an image, it will describe the image. It's like, here's an image of Mike's mess, for example. Or it's just simply going to read the whole page for that person. So screen reading softwares are used by the people that they have disabilities and they can't see that much. The screen reading software can read the text inside an alt attribute for any users, okay? That using that kind of software. So when you make your application, you also want to make it for all the users and have this kind of accessibility function in your application. We should add the alt attribute to the image tag, just like the source attribute. And it's a good practice to add the alt attribute and just describe the image. All you have to do in the alt attribute, just describing what is this image for. And if for any reason the image failed to load, for example, in this example here, the image failed to load. As you can see, it's a broken image, but we have an alt or alternative attribute in that case. Clarusway, you will see that you will see the alternative attribute here. So the user at least know what you are trying to view in this image, even though it's broken, it's not exist, and you can't see it, but you give him a description of what is the image was or what it's supposed to be. Okay, let's try the alt attribute. So I'm going to add here image for the logged in user, something like that. You can describe it like this. You just put any description here, okay? And I remove the n from the image name in that case. So it will fail to load this image. You will see you have the alt text here, image for the logged in user. However, if the image loaded correctly, you're not going to see this text here. So if I put the n back, I will have that person image here, and you will not see the alt text or the alternative text. However, if there is somebody else viewing your page through voice reading application or software, he's not going to be able to see the image, of course, because that's the reason he's using this application. So the application will read the description of the image for him. Okay. Any questions about the images? Anybody having problems so far with the images? Okay. It's actually 8 o'clock, and it's a good time to take the break right now. And after we come back from the break, we got to go over how you can control the width and the height of any image, because you actually have an attribute for that. You can add it to the images. So you can set the width and the height of any images through attributes. And we're going to cover that, of course, after the break. We can take the 15-minute break right now. Going to get back 8:15 exactly. Any question before we go to break? Or anybody having an error in the Visual Studio Code you want help? Okay. So I'll see you 8:15. Enjoy your break. Hey, welcome back, guys. So we're going to continue with images. Before the break, we covered the image tag, and also we covered the ordered list and unordered list in HTML. But we're going to continue. Now you understand what is an attribute. It's just an extra piece of information you give to tags or elements in HTML, so you can tell the browser how to render your element. Now, an important attribute that comes with the images that you might want to use is the width and the height attributes. Let's start by sharing my screen. Of course, we covered the alt attribute, which can be used with impaired users that they are using the screen reading softwares. But there's more attributes for the image element. How you can control the image width and height. You can do that through an attributes with the same name, an attribute that called width and another attribute that called height. So the width and height attributes are used to resize your images. So let's say this image, let me put it side by side. So you can see the difference. So this is the image right now. And of course, I want to go to view and wrap text, my text here. So you can see the whole line. I can add here a width attribute. And you can put a value here. The value can be in pixels. Your screen here have number of pixels, and it's just the small dots that make up the screen. Or you can put a percentage. It accepts the width, accept the percentage. So I can put 25% of the original size of the image or the original width of the image. So whatever this width is in pixels, I want to show 25% of it, which can be like that. Save, and you can see it's less by 25, or it's going to be 25% of the original width. I can put 10%, and it's going to get smaller. I can put 100%. It's going to be the full image in that case, which is 100%. Actually, this percentage of the width of the screen, my bad. So you see it's 100%, so it's going to be 100% of the width of the screen. So it's taking the full width of the screen. If I put it as 25%, it's going to be 25% of the width of the screen. So if this is the full width, and I cut it in half, this is the 25% of it. Of course, if my screen getting bigger, the image getting bigger because it's a percentage. So now I'm increasing the width of my page, and now the image getting bigger because it will always take 25% of my page. And that kind of sizing, it's called relative sizing because this number is relative number to the size of the screen, because the screen getting bigger, the image getting bigger. You can have it as a fixed size by identifying the number of pixels in that case. So let's say I want to have it 400 pixel. In that case, you just put the number, you don't put a percentage. And in that case, it's going to be 400 pixels. And again, it depends on the size of your screen, and that number usually is a trial and error if you're not familiar with the pixel system. So if it's the correct size that you want, or you can decrease it, you want to make it 100 pixels until you're happy with the size of the width. Well, this is taking 100 pixels. I can put it as 250 pixels. And notice now, it's not related to the width of the screen. So I can increase the width. The image will always be 250 pixels because it's not a relative value anymore. It is fixed value. Okay. However, if I put this 25% relative to the width of the screen, notice now once I increase the width, the image widths get bigger and it's getting smaller. So you have the relative size by using percentage, and you have a fixed size by using just the pixel numbers. Okay. Similar with the width, I can, let's say 25%, and let's put the height, let's say 25% or 50% of my screen height in that case. In that case, it's not going to affect. I have to hard code it 2 pixels to override it. So let's say 600 pixels. See, now it gets stretched. And that will affect the resolution of the image itself until I get the width bigger. So let's put this 200 pixels fixed. Now it is fixed image. It's not related to the width of my screen anymore. What if I put it 1000? So it's going to be stretched like this. It will take 1000 pixels as a width. But keep in mind, you can affect the resolution of the image. For example, using a very small image and you're trying to make it so big for the screen, the resolution of the image will be affected, of course, and it's not going to be clear. So you need to pay attention of the resolution for the original image and how you want to resize it. You want to resize it, or you want to set the width and height as relative with a percentage or with a fixed value as pixels. Okay, and the pixels in that case is related to the screen. So if you have a phone, it's have a smaller screen, so it's going to have less pixels. If you have a big screen, then it have more pixels. So again, you have the width and the height attributes, and you can set them with a percentage or a number. So I'm going to put here a percentage, so you know that you have 2 values that you can set, either percentage or a number of pixels in that case. So as you can see, image tag can take multiple of attributes. The only required attribute here is the source of the image, which image you want to load in that in this tag. And optionally, it can take the title. Title, you can use it with any element, any HTML element you can use the title with. And best practice when you use images to use the alternative tag, which is short alt, to describe what is the image is. So in case the page can't be loaded or the image can't be loaded for any kind of reason, like let's say slow connection and the image is still loading, or the user went offline for any reason and the image can't be loaded to the web page, he can see the description of the image. And of course, he can control the width and the height of the image, either relative to the width of the screen by using percentages or by hard coding number of pixels. Any questions? All right, let's explore more attributes. So the border attribute. You can add a border to your images. By default, an image shouldn't have any border, and a border is just simply this layout, black layout surrounding the image here. To add a border around the image, you can use the border attribute. So the border attribute here, you also add a number of pixels. So attributes, the key in that case, or the name of the attribute is border. And the value, it's a little bit different, that you put 2 pixels and you have to add the px keyword, which indicating pixels. You don't have to use px when you do the width and the height because it's given the number. It will translate the number as pixels. But with the border, you should actually specify how many pixels by using px, 2px, 3px, short 3 pixels, 4 pixels, the exact number of pixels you want for the border. So let's test this attribute. Let me put the image like this. And now I'm going to have a new line, border. Oh, missing an R here, border. And it's going to be colored red. That's fine. And it's not a mistake. It's just telling you if you hover over it here with the mouse, it should tell you that probably HTML that it gives you indication that if you want to change the border, you should do it with CSS. But in that case, we didn't learn about CSS yet, so I can use this attribute in that case. So I want to have, for example, 2 pixels. So you will see that now the image is surrounded by this black line, and the width of this line is 2 pixels. I can increase the width of that line. For example, I want to add it 5 pixels. You see now it gets thicker. Okay, so this number in pixels is the thickness of that border. I can add it 10 pixels, now getting thicker. So I'll put it with 2 pixels. In that case, you will have that border that's surrounding your image with a thickness of 2 pixels. But keep in mind when you use this, if you're using any pixel value in any attribute other than the height and width, you have to specify the px, which is short for pixel. Okay, so you probably want to add a border to your images. Definitely you can do it this way. Any questions about the border attribute or any of the attributes that we covered today? Okay. Now let's talk about links, how we can use links. You will need a lot of links in your application. Let's say you have a navigation bar and you have this navigation bar have the home, services, about me, contact me. Every single tab in your navigation is actually a link that will take you to a completely different page. How you can create a link in HTML. It's called the A tag. So links in HTML, the A here is short for anchor. So it's anchor tag. So you're creating an anchor or a link, okay? And the only requirement attribute in that case is called the href, which is short for the hyperlink reference, okay? Which address you want to go to when the user click in this link. So this is a link. When the user click in this link, your page should go somewhere. Okay, you get redirect the user to other location, to another link. And this link should be stored in the hyperlink reference, or the attribute called href, which is short for hyperlink reference. Okay, now let's create a link, a simple link. So let's first read that. One of the advantages of HTML is the ability to link to other web pages. So you can redirect the user to different pages or load different content in the same page. The A tag, or the anchor tag element, and including text, is used to define a link. Okay, so you will see here, it's the A tag. They have the opening and the closing, and they put some text here. And this text is with what the user see actually. So he will see this text here. But this, at this point of time, it's not actually a link. It's just like a paragraph. It's just a piece of text that the user see. If you try to click on it, it's not going to go anywhere because you never told the browser when the user click on it where to go, right? That's why we need the href attribute in that case. So let's try this element. So I'm going to put links.html, create a boilerplate, delete the meta tags. I don't need them. I'm going to keep the lang attribute here, or the language attribute, as English. Change the title, put it HTML links. And now I'm going to add an h1 title and put here HTML links. And now let's add a link. I'm going to use the A tag, which is short for anchor. And let's put, for example, Google. Okay, let's add another link. Microsoft. And let's load this page with the live server. First, you will see that they are not actually links. They are text. This is the first link, and this is the second link. And the reason for that, as I said, you didn't specify the href. The second thing to notice here, that it will render the both links in the same line, not like paragraph, that every single paragraph, it should have its own line, right? The reason for that, because the anchor tags are called inline elements. So it will allow other elements to be right next to them. So this is the first link. If you have another link after, it's going to go right next to it. It's not going to be on its own line. If some elements in HTML are called block level, where they can take the whole block by themselves, will reserve the full line. For example, the paragraph, like this HTML taking the whole block by itself. That's why you call them block level elements. So the link tag or the anchor tag is not a block level element. It will allow other inline elements to be inline in the same line with it. Okay, that's just a small notice here. So a quick question for you. How can I put the second one in a separate line? Something we learned about it yesterday. Break line, exactly. Yep, so I can use a break line here to start the second link on a separate line. Here we go, I have the two links. But as I said, this is not actually a link, because if I click on it, I can click all night. It's not going to go anywhere. I want to create a link. When I click on it, it will take me to google.com or take me to microsoft.com. But you need to tell that to the browser. You need to give some extra information. And as you learned today, to give extra information to the browser, it is by using attributes. So in that case, I need to tell the browser, when the user clicks this link, I want you to take him to google.com. So you have to go here, and it's called href, which is hyperlink reference. And I want to go to www.google.com. That will let the user redirect to google.com. And notice what happened right now. Now it's actually turned to a link. And now when you hover over it, your mouse turned to a pointer, indicating that you can click on it, right? And now it's have like that blue color with an underline. That's the basic and default styling that the browser gives any link. And of course, you can change that styling with the CSS. But let's try it right now. Let's try to click on it. As you can see, it will break because I'm using live server. But to solve this problem, you can put the protocol in front of here, HTTPS. This is the protocol. And then you put : // Now it's a full URL. And if I save that, go back. Here we go. Let's go to google.com. Okay. Let's do href here. HTTPS. This is the protocol. And again, there is two only protocols that you can use with the browser: the HTTPS and the HTTP. Most of the HTTP become secure. The S here is short for secure hyper transfer text protocol. It's the protocol of how you communicate over the internet. So www.microsoft.com. And now let's get back to my page. If I save this, here we go. It turned to a link. Try to click on it. It will take you to the Microsoft page. And if you go back, you can click in Google. And notice also that the color, if you visit the link now, changed from a blue to that purple color. Okay. So this is how link used in HTML. You can use the href, and definitely you can use the title that you'll learn about. So I can make sure that text wrap, I can add an attribute title, go to google.com. And now when I hover over it, save, you see, you will have this box saying go to google.com because I have the title attribute. And make sure that both attributes are before you close the opening tag with this greater than bracket. Okay, so the href is very important. If you didn't add the href, it will be just simply some text. And the visible part of your link is between the opening tag, between this opening tag and the closing tag, is the text that's going to be visible to the user, which in that case, the Microsoft is whatever the user see. So the href attribute, technically, we didn't complete the HTML link. We need an href attribute inside the opening tag to specify or to tell the browser which page we want to link it to our page. So the href attribute defines the address of that link. It will make that kind of connection that when the user clicks on that button, he will go to the other web page. And now the browser itself understands what to do when the user clicks in this link. Now the browser, when the user clicks in this link, it will redirect him to that web page. In that example, we have a link that will link us to the Clarusway.com. And here, wherever the user see is what between the opening tag and the closing tag. So here, this is the text that the user will see it in the web page. But when he clicks on it here, he will actually go to this URL or this web page. Any question about the anchor tag or the href attribute? The slides, definitely it will be shared with you, and the codes as well in the GitHub repository. So you will have the code at the end of the day, and I'm going to show you by the end of the class where we're storing the repository. And I believe if you go to the Slack channel, they have the link for the GitHub and also the link where you can access that Clarusway LMS system, so you can have access to the slides as well. Okay, what about the target attribute? The target attribute, you define to the browser where to load the page that you're going to redirect to. Let's examine our page here. Now I have this page, which is HTML links. If I click in google.com, google.com will be loaded in the same page here, in the same tab. So if I click here, it is the same tab, get redirected to Google, right? So probably that's not the behavior you want to do. You want to probably open this link in a separate tab so you can control that kind of behavior through the target. So the target link, you want to open it in the same tab or in a separate tab. Okay, so you give this instructions to the browser. So the target attribute is used to specify how a link should be opened. You want to open it in the same tab. The default is going to open the link in the same tab. But if you want to open the link in a completely separate tab, so the user actually, you still have your web page opened, but also open the link in a separate page, you can use the target attribute. And the target attribute require a value of underscore blank. So it will be open in a blank page or on a blank tab, but the value of it is just underscore blank. We should add the target attribute inside the opening of the anchor tag like an href attribute. Of course, any attributes have to be inside the opening tag. That's where the attributes live. Okay, you can't put them with the text, you can't put them in the closing tag. It have to be in the opening tag. Let's give it a try. Now, I want this Microsoft to be open in a separate tab. So I can add the target. You see, if I put T, it will list all the attributes that I can use here. So if I forget which attribute should I use, I was like, here I see the target. Yeah, I'm going to use that one. And it will list all the values that you can use here. Okay. So in that case, we want to use the blank to open it in a separate screen. And if you save, you see, if you hover over any of the attributes, it's going to give you like a small summary about it. Here, specify where to display the linked URL. It's the name of or keyword of the browsing context. Here, the title contain a text representing advisory information related to an element it belongs to. So as you can see, Visual Studio is very helpful. Here, you can hover over it, contain a URL or a URL fragment that the hyperlink points to. Here. And you can hover over any element and it will give you a small description about it. The body element represents the content of the document, of course. All right, so we now added this attribute. So we give an instruction to the browser that, hey, this link, Microsoft, don't open it on my web page. When the user try to click on it, open it in a completely separate web page. Save that. And now go back here. So I have only one tab here, which is my page. If I click on Microsoft, notice now that Microsoft is opened in a completely new tab or a new page in that case. I still have my page open here. Okay. However, for Google, it will be opened in the same page. My page is gone. That's it. And of course, that's the default behavior. Any questions? Which of the tags that we covered today you think it's? Go ahead.
Yeah, hi. Thank you for
You're welcome.
job well done. I kind of joined about 5 minutes late because I was having troubles logging in. You started with the ordered and on
Order list and unordered list.
Yes, and I'm a little bit, I don't know if I'm lost or I'm on track. Like for where we are right now, I want to understand how to start the steps, you know, because we've talked about following steps as well under the ordered and unordered. Do I start with the header, that is the header, then the body, then it goes on down to, because I can see here on your screen, I have the header, that's the opening and the closing. No, I have the opening, I have the body, I have the closing, and then I have all the other examples that you've given us. Like, must it follow these formats if I have to get to the point where maybe I need to put in a blank or I need to put in additional maybe href and all that? Like, must I follow this sequence, what I have in front of me right now?
It's depend what you're trying to build after all. So if you're building a page and you want to have a link inside it, then you have to use the A tag. If you want to add a list in that page, then you have to decide you want it ordered list or unordered list. So it's all about what you need to build, and also how is the functionality you want it to happen. You want the user to go open the link that you're linking your page to in the same page or a separate page.
Okay.
But again, we just right now you can think about it that we're listing multiple elements, give you introduction to multiple elements of HTML, and in the fourth day, then we're gonna use all these elements to put it in a small project, like a portfolio project. But right now, I'm creating different files here.
Okay.
Trying to give you introduction about different tags that you might use in your application or any web page that you're designing. I'm not sure that answer your question, or
so invariably, from what I understand, it's possible, like if I were to do a small project now, that I will have everything that you've taught us so far in a particular web page that I'm designing for my clients.
Of course.
Okay.
If you're designing a web page, you will have lists, you will have links, you will have headers, you will have paragraphs. This is a very simple web page, just as an introduction, or just to focus at this specific element.
Okay.
But if you're doing like a web page, then it should contain multiple elements, not only focus element like that.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Anytime. But now the whole goal here to actually understand the link tag and to understand what kind of attribute that you can use with it. Is that mean that every time you're gonna design a web page, you're gonna have to use all these attributes? No, it depends how you want it to function. Okay. Again, you're the developer after all. You want it to open in a separate tab, then you're familiar with that target attribute. Do you want to show this kind of pop-up box when the user hover over it? Then you have to use the title tag and all the attributes in the opening tag here. You probably want to decide that you don't want to use the title or the target. However, the only requirement is the href. You have to tell the browser when the user clicking this link where it should take the user to. Okay. Images as links. Can I now combine image and a link, like to make an image when the user clicking that image that actually take him to other web page? Yes, definitely yes. So in that case, we can use an image as a link in the HTML format or the HTML page for this. It is enough to put an image tag between the opening and the closing. What does that mean? You see here, we use that link tag. Currently, we're putting just text, but we can replace this text with an image, right? So instead of putting text, I can put an image, and in that case, that image is clickable, and the user can click on it, and it will redirect him to any web page. Let's try this concept and see if it's going to work or not. Image link.js, not HTML, not JS. Okay, I'm going to create a boilerplate with just putting the exclamation mark, remove any meta tag. We don't need it, right? Or you can keep them. Image as links. And let's get a nice image from the internet. So we can go to Google image. And we go for images. And let's get this image. And you can right click on it and save it as. And I will go inside here, inside the HTML2, and call the image Google. Save it. It will be saved in my Visual Studio Code. You can see now I have google.jpg, and if you click on it, you can actually see it in the Visual Studio Code. Here, I have a link. So let me put an H1 just to describe what I'm going to be doing in this page. Using images as links. So I'm going to use an A tag. You have to put the href. It's a must to see that the cursor will be shown as a pointer in that case. And you put the protocol, which is HTTPS, 2// www.google.com. And here, and instead of putting text, I actually can put an image. And as you know by now, image, there is a required attribute, which is the source, src. And now the source, the image should be in the same directory as the HTML file, which is currently they are in the same directory. And I put the name of the image, which is Google. Once I start typing G, you'll see that it will drop down the name of the image, and that's very helpful. And I can click on it and select google.jpg. If you save that, and now let's open it with the live server. Here we go. But this is big. Can I reduce the width and length of an image? What is the attribute that I can use here to reduce the width or to control the width of an image? You guys remember? It's attribute.
Height attribute.
The height is the height attribute. Yeah, you can control the height. And I can put here fixed value, let's say 100 pixel. Now that's too much for a link. Let's put 50 pixel. Okay. And I can put the height 50 pixels as well, which is in that case, it's same here. So I have this, and notice when I hover over it, now you will see that the mouse turned to a pointer, indicating that I can click that link, right? So let's try. And now you'll see that this icon or this image will take me to Google. What if I want to open this in a completely different tab to keep my original web page opened? How can I do that? And now in the link or in the anchor, I can add a target attribute, and the value is underscore blank. Save that. And now if I click in this link, notice that Google page will be opened in a completely separate tab because I'm using the target attribute. Here we go. Nice. It will keep opening a new blank every time I click on it. Every time it will open a new page for me. Okay. Any questions, guys? Anybody confused? Keep in mind this image is inside the anchor tag or the link tag, and you can put a tab here to visually see that.
Sorry, the last thing you just said now.
Mm-hmm. I just said.
Keep in mind that a link tag is inside. Didn't quite get what you're explaining.
I was saying the last thing that I said, that we have the link tag, which is the A here, or the anchor tag,
Yes.
is wrapping the image element.
Okay. Okay.
And I said also to visually see this, you can put a tab here to indent the image tag. So now we can see that there is an opening tag for the anchor and there is a closing tag after the image. So visually you can see it.
Exactly. That's what I needed to get again. Thank you.
You're welcome. And again, a nice feature in Visual Studio Code, you see when you put your mouse here close to the numbers, you can toggle this. You can close the anchor tag and open it. You can close the body and open it. You can close the head and open it. And the HTML, you can close the whole document. And this has become very nice feature to tell you if you forget to close something. For example, here, if I forget to close the body, you'll see the body here will not going to have this closing. That will indication to me that, hey, I forget to close the body here. So now if I put here, I'll see the arrow that I can close it and open it. Okay. Any other questions, guys? Okay. All right, that's the end of the HTML, but we're going to start as well CSS today. We're going to start the brief history about CSS, and it will be nice because I will show you how you can link CSS with HTML and you can start styling your pages. As I said, without CSS, your pages look ugly right now. This is the default styling of your browser. You can control how the page look like and make it more appealing and nice web page by using CSS properties. And you can think about CSS. It's not actually a programming language. It's just a set of rules. You define how you want elements or tags to look in certain ways. And also CSS can control, you can do any, like if, again, it's very nice to be highly skilled in CSS. I have many students that be like, you know what, I'm going to use a framework. I don't need to know anything about CSS. I'm just going to use framework that will help me get anything I want from style to style my elements. But actually, to be skilled in CSS, you can literally do anything to your page, and you can do wonderful animations to the web page. And many of the games that you will do online, you will need to fully understand how CSS work, especially if you're doing like a game web page, or you using animation, or you want to create a responsive web page. All that controlled by CSS. CSS will control how the elements look, how can you make your web page responsive, and also animation. So definitely it helps you a lot, not only to rely on frameworks, because if you're using a framework, there is other 10,000 plus companies using also the same framework that you're going to be using, and your app will going to be look similar to the other companies. You want to be your app to be more unique. You want to design how it look like yourself. Okay, so I always say CSS and HTML, a good understanding of them is the cornerstone for web development and full stack. That's the start. I know there's a lot of students just, try to not fully understand HTML and CSS and then jump to JavaScript right away, but they realize that they have to go back and learn the basics again because they missed some of the information about the HTML and CSS. But again, it's 9 o'clock right now. Let's take a quick 15-minute break. And once we get back to the break, from the break, we're gonna start the CSS slides, and I'm gonna show you how you can connect the HTML page with an external CSS, or you can put the CSS rules inside your HTML page. Any questions before we go to break, guys? Okay. I'll be closing this slide, and when we get back from the break, I will open the slides for the CSS, and I'll give you the code for them. All right, I'll see you after the break. Okay, guys, so before we actually start the CSS, I want to show you a couple extensions that probably going to make your life easy during development with HTML. And I'm going to paste the name of the extension in the chat. So we use Live Server to load our page. There is another extension that you can use, which is called Live Preview. If you want to just see how the page look like without actually leaving Visual Studio Code, you don't have to go to the web browser. You can use this Live Preview. So you can go to your extension and type in Live Preview. You see that I already have it installed, and you click here and you install it. If you want to uninstall any of the extension, you just uninstall it, or you can disable it. But once you install it, you want to reload your Visual Studio Code to take an effect, and it will add this icon to you here. You probably don't have these other icons because these are for other extension that you don't need right now. This is for JavaScript and this is for Markdown language, but you should see this icon here. And what is this extension will do to you? Now I can take a look at this page right here by clicking in this live preview, just to see the look of my page, how it look like. So if I click on it, it will open here on the side, how the page look like. I can open a different file here, close it, click in live preview, and I can see my page, and I can adjust any of the values. For example, I want to have it as 100 pixel, and you can see as long as you make any changes here, you see it live. You don't have to save your code. So you can put it back as 50, and this is called live preview. I'm going to put the name of the extension. Oops. The second extension that you want to see visually, the opening and the closing tags in HTML. So you can install highlight matching tags. Matching. You can, matching tag. It will highlight the tags for you. So when you have much more indented tags inside each other, you can they will have different colors, so you can match them easily visually. And as you can see, it's very popular. We have over 1 million installation. I didn't install it, but you can definitely use that one. And of course, I need to reload. And you see when I select the body, you see the other tag here is highlighted. When I select the head, you see it's highlighted. You can tell where's the beginning and the ending of the tag. The last one that I want to share is going to be Indent Rainbow. And you can take a look here. It's over 3 million that it will create colors for your indentation. Hopefully it can work. I don't have it, but I believe it should work with HTML as well. Indented Rainbow. And let's take a look at that. It's gonna work. Here we go. You see that the first indentation now it's have the color green. If I have complex one, you will see it visually. So let's go to the list, nested list. You see now here, this is the first indentation, which is colored that look like a yellow. In the second level of the indentation, it's green. And here, now visually you can tell whatever you have in red here is nested inside another element here. And that element is nested in another element as visually while you're coding. Again, these are some extensions that will make your life easy during development. But now let's start CSS. And now this is the code. You can go to this joinpd.com and type in the code for the slides. And we're going to start the slides. So we will cover a small introduction about CSS today and tomorrow. Of course, CSS, there's a lot of different topics that you can cover in CSS. As I said, responsive styling and doing animations. Of course, that's like a little bit more advanced topics. First, we're going to cover what is CSS. What is the history of CSS and what kind of versions we have for CSS? Currently, the latest is CSS 3. There is version 1, version 2, and the latest is 3. And by default, any browser will understand that you're writing in CSS 3. Why we use CSS, and we're going to explore the CSS syntax. What is the syntax that CSS follow? What is CSS? It's short for Cascading Style Sheets. After all, it's not a language, it's a styling sheets that you provide to your markup language or to your HTML to tell the browser how your page should look like. Like the colors, the backgrounds, all of that, you describe that in the Cascading Styling Sheet. Your HTML file should only have the structure of the page, but not how the page should look like. So CSS help elements how to be displayed in the web page. CSS files the external style sheets, which consist of the styles of the HTML. So it can be external, or you can actually put the styling rules inside your page. There's multiple ways that you can add styling sheets to your web page. And we're gonna go over the 3 different types of adding style sheets in your page. So here's the picture again. HTML adjusts the structures. Think about it as the bones. CSS, how you dress, how you actually put clothes and look like, and JavaScript is the action. So CSS, as you can see, it's more as presentational styling of your page. HTML is the structure, and JavaScript, how your page actually behave with any user interaction with your page. So let's talk a little bit about the history of CSS. So Hakon Wiam Lee, hopefully I pronounce his name correctly, released the first draft of Cascading HTML style sheets. That was released in October 1994, although it takes 3 years for any browser to come close to fully implementing the CSS. August in 1996, Microsoft Internet Explorer became the first browser to support CSS. Again, CSS is, you can think about it as some commands. Of course, the browser will interpret this kind of commands. And you have vendors who make the browsers. Microsoft is one of the vendors that make their own browsers. Google make a different browsers, and they have the full right to implement CSS or not. or to take some of its rules and ignore the rest. That's why you have an organization that called W3C, and they make recommendations. What is the syntax of CSS? And if they want to add a new property to CSS, it's just recommendation. And now it's the job for the vendor like Chrome, Safari, Microsoft is to take this recommendation and implement them in their browser or not. Okay. So CSS 1 was the very first version that was implemented in Internet Explorer in December 1996. In May 1998, the W3C, which is the organization that put the protocol or the rules or the specification, whatever you want to call it, it's mainly specifications, released the CSS2, which added a new capabilities, including z-index. These are properties that wasn't included in CSS1. So they put the z-index, media type, bidirectional text, absolute and relative, and fixed position. That's how you can fix elements inside your page, and support for oral style sheets. With the release of the CSS3, which is the latest version, capabilities was broken into modules. So you have different modules. Between June 2011 and June 2012, the following 4 modules was released as a formal recommendations. So you have the colors, the color module, the selector level 3, name spaces, and the media queries. Don't worry about the naming right now. This is the history. In today, we're just probably gonna cover some of the basics colors and like how you can make the text color change, how you can make the background change. But as more you get advanced and you get familiar with multiple properties, you will understand what is a media query is, using media queries mainly for responsive design to make sure that your application look nice in a mobile devices as well as in computer devices. But that's mainly the history. All you need to know that there is 3 versions, and the latest is CSS3, and that's the version that everybody's using right now. Why we use CSS? CSS is used to style your page. You want to make your page look good, right? That's the whole idea. You don't want to make your page look like 1990. You want to make a modern page, interactive page. Using CSS, you will be able to put out pages without much less work that load much faster and will be easy to update and print. So your page can load faster with CSS. It's very efficient. It will update the styling of your page, and you can even specify the styling of how the page can be printed. So you probably want to style it differently in a printed version of your page. Did you ever like book a ticket, and when you try to print it, they tell you click on this button to have a printed friendly or printing friendly version of the page? You can do that with CSS as well. So it will have look different when you try to print it with a printer, but when the user try to go to your page, it look different than the printing version. So you can control all this, how it look in a printer, how it look in a mobile devices, how it look in a normal screen as well. This is very important. What is the syntax that CSS follow? And we're talking about all the properties now. CSS have a lot of properties, but they all must follow this syntax. Similar to HTML, it have multiple tags, but they all have to follow the syntax of opening tag and closing tag. This is the syntax. Basic CSS rule. So this is called a rule, single rule here, consists of a selector. The first part is a selector. Do you want to apply the styling to the paragraph? Do you want to apply it to the H1? which element in your page you want to apply the CSS to. So you're selecting that specific element to apply specific rules to it. So the first is the selector. In that case, we're selecting all the paragraphs that in our page. If I want to select all the headings in my page with level 1, I'm going to put an H1. If I want to select the links, I'm going to put an A. So that's the first part. Then you put a space. Then you open a curly brackets to start adding the CSS properties. So all the CSS properties should be between two curly brackets. Okay. So I selected the element that I want to perform styling on it. And now it's the step where you add the styles. And you add the styles between the two curly brackets. In this example, P is the selector, which can select all the paragraph elements in the HTML page. It means that all text in the P element will be blue. Why will be blue? Because I use the color property. Again, it's a name, not equal. You put a colon, then the value. In that case, the color is the name and the value is the blue, because now I want to set the color property to be blue. So the color property will have the value of blue. And every single statement, you finish it with a semicolon. Okay. So we start with the selector. Then you put the CSS properties with inside the two curly brackets, and you can add CSS lines. You can have multiple lines. Every single line should be terminated with a semicolon. Every single CSS line should be two things separated by a colon: property and its value. Color, blue. If I want to set the background to something else, you put the background red. So now the paragraph will have text color blue and the background will be red. The declaration block, which is this block, contain one or more declaration. Currently, we have only one declaration or only one CSS rule in that case. And these should be separated by semicolons. In the example, we have only one declaration or one rule in that case, which is the color is blue. Declaration must be separated by, surrounded by curly brackets and end with a semicolon. So this is the syntax that you always should use your CSS. Okay, now I understand the syntax, how to write a CSS lines, but how can I add it to my HTML? How you can use it, use the CSS in your HTML page. There's multiple ways. You can use external files or internal CSS or something called inline CSS. Okay, let's now, I'm going to create a folder here. I'm going to call it CSS. And I'm going to create a page, HTML page. Let's call it inline css.js.html. So I'm going to explain the inline CSS first. I will delete the meta. Inline CSS. I will have here an H1 inline CSS. I will add a paragraph. My first paragraph. Okay. Now I want this paragraph to be red, and I want this header to be green. To add CSS on the tag itself, it's called inline. So I can go to this tag, this paragraph, and use an attribute that called style. And style attribute will let me add CSS to that particular element. So in that case, I don't need to select the element, right? Because I already put it inside the element. So the first part here in our syntax, we don't need it. We don't need the selector because I'm putting the styling inside that element already using the style attribute. So the selector, you don't need it in that case. I'm already inside the paragraph. You just put the two curly brackets to start putting the CSS here. And I can say color, and you put a colon. This is the property name, color, and I want the value to be red. And don't forget semicolon. Actually, I don't think you need curly brackets here. Yeah, you don't need the curly brackets here since you're using inline styling. Now let's use the purview to see. Now it's red. Nice. If I change it to blue, now it's blue. You can add a new CSS rule here. Let's say background. You see Visual Studio Code now help you, and it will list all the CSS properties that you can use. The only one that I want to use is the background color. Let's use background color red. You see now I have background color of red and a text color of blue. What if I created another paragraph? Do you think the second paragraph will have the same styling or no? What do you think? Let's say this is my second paragraph. Of course, it's not going to have the same styling because this styling with this attribute, it's only affecting this element. It's not going to affect all the paragraphs in your page. Okay, so it's very specific toward this paragraph. Now, if I want to change the H1 color, so I can use the style attribute and start saying color green. And don't forget the semicolon. Now I have here this header or this heading, now it's green. Okay, and of course you can add more stylings here. Now, this called inline. This is one way to use CSS inside the HTML, but it's not the best way because in that case, you're mixing styling and HTML in the same file, right? You want to separate them. Another way to use CSS, if you take a look at our list here, is the internal CSS. Okay, so now I'm going to cover the internal CSS. Let me close this. Internal CSS.html. I'm going to have an H1 here. A paragraph. And let's add another paragraph. Okay. Now, I don't want to mix my styling with the elements here. So I'm going to use the internal CSS. Internal because it's still going to be written inside the HTML page. But I'm going to go to the head here, the head tag, and add a new tag It's called style tag. So now I'm going to use the style as a tag or an element, not as a property, not as an attribute here. So in this style here, I can add any CSS that I want with the syntax that we just covered, where you have the selector. So now I can select all the paragraph where I put P and I put curly brackets. And now I can put any property, CSS properties that I want to use. For example, I can put color red. But again, it have to be inside the head because it's an instructions to the browser how to style your elements. The style tag having opening and closing, and between the opening and closing, you can add any CSS code. Okay, you don't put HTML code, you only add CSS code, and this is a CSS code. And in that case, you need to specify which element you want to affect. You want to change its color. In that case, I want to say paragraph. I want the paragraph color to be red. And CSS here, I put it between the two curly brackets. Now the question, do you think this styling will affect both paragraphs or only the first one? What do you think?
I think both.
Both, exactly. I wasn't specific in that case. I said any paragraph in my page, I want it to be color red. Let's preview this page. And now both are red. And even if I created a third one, it will be also red. Any paragraph in my page should be red. Now, let's say I can put a new line here. And I can put the background color. Background color. And I can set any background color name value, like light blue. See, Visual Studio Code is very helpful. Once you put L, it gives you all the colors that start with an L that you can use. So I want a light sky blue. And here's the background is light sky blue. Okay, now if I want to change my heading here, how can I do that? You select it, right? So I can select the H1. And now inside between the two curly brackets here, I can set the color to be green. And now you will see, now you're changing the color of the heading, and you actually affecting how the page look like by the colors that you're selecting. Okay, but again, this is called internal because you don't add it as an attribute, similar to this example. You don't use the style attribute and you add it on that specific element. Okay, any questions so far about the two stylings that we use, the inline and the internal CSS? Any question about the syntax? Okay. What about if can I select the whole page? How can I make the whole page to have a background of, let's say, yellow?
I think we need to put after HTML line.
I put after the HTML what?
HTML line. No.
Here? No, you can't.
No, the first one. Open tag.
This
the first
open tag?
Yeah. After that.
Or you can select the body because everything here is inside the body, right?
Yeah.
So body is still a
right.
tag. So I can select the body and make background color, let's say blue violet. See, the whole page now, background changed, but this is like a little bit dark one. Let's do light gray. lights element. So now I control the whole page because my whole page is inside the body tag. I change the background of the whole page. Okay. Now let's talk about the third way that you can use CSS. And instead of internal and inline, you can use a whole external styling sheet. And that's the way that I usually use CSS. You want to separate all the CSS code because sooner or later that file is going to be very crowded. You're going to have a lot of HTML code and you're going to have a lot of CSS, and it's going to be hard to keep track of that file. So you want to separate one file for the CSS and one file for the HTML, right? So it's easy to debug what's going on and what might go wrong in the application, or just to actually visually see the code. So you can use external CSS file. So external CSS.html. Here, this file is just going to be HTML. There is no CSS at all. And I'm going to use an external CSS to be able to style that file. And here, simply, let's add the same code. So I can go here and copy this code and paste it here. And now I can create a completely external styling sheet. So I can add a file here. Let's call it style.css. So the extension of the file have to be CSS. So Visual Studio Code can understand that this is a CSS file. Okay. Here, you can open the style sheet and the HTML, both of them by hitting this icon here. And now I'm having the style sheet opened here, and this is my HTML code here. And now I can select my elements. I can select my body. This is the selector. And here are the curly brackets where I'm going to put CSS codes. And I can set the color to be light blue, for example. And don't forget the semicolon. And I can select the paragraph where I can set the body should be background color, not color. Background, the color is the text color. For the paragraph, I want to set the color to be red. And for my H1, I want the color to be green. Okay, so now I have this separate CSS file, and I have this HTML file. How can I make the link between the CSS and the HTML? So I need to link both files together, right? So I need to tell this HTML file to load the CSS file. And the tag that you usually use, and also put it in the head tag, it's called link. Okay, a self-closing tag. And this link take an href attribute pointing to your CSS file. So now we're linking the CSS file, the external file, inside my HTML. It's like you injecting this CSS file inside your HTML file by using the link tag. So using the link tag here, you can add the attribute href. And href, you put the name of the CSS file name, which is going to be style.css. That might not going to work, but let's try it. Open in live server. It's not working. And the reason it's not working, because you didn't specify what is the relation between this CSS and this file. So you can need to put the relationship here. Style. Or I forget how actually the relation that you, or you can do link. And here you see the link tag, how Visual Studio Code help you. If you forget like me, what is the relation should be, you just type in link, press enter, and it will put the relation for you as a style sheet. Okay. I was confused, it should be styling sheet or style sheet, but that's how Visual Studio Code can help you with this kind of stuff. And now you add in the href here, the name of the style sheet, which is style.css. So now you make this kind of link that you refer to an external file using the link tag, where you point to the external file using the href attribute, and also specify what is the relation. Without the relation, it's not going to render correctly. Okay, so you have to put the relation is a style sheet, and you don't need to memorize that. 99%, what I do, just type in link and put my file name here, which is in that case style.css. If I save that, you go back here, you will see that the page, the styling now is taking effect in your page, and you will see that the background changed and the paragraph color changed, and your HTML code is clean. There is no styling here in this file, and all your styling is in a separate file that you can control. Okay, so now I can change this to, let's say, yellow. And if I go to my page, I should see that the paragraphs are yellow right now. Okay, so there's 3 ways that you can use CSS in your page. Inline, where you actually put it inside the element opening tag using the style attribute, and you start putting all the CSS commands here. Or you can use internal CSS, where you can use inside the head a style tag, and this style tag here, you put all your CSS declarations here. Or you can use an external file, and this is the most popular way, that you use a separate CSS file, and then all you need to do is just link this file using the link tag. Okay, so let's see what is the slides here. So we started with the external file. So the style can be located in a different file. So you can add all this file styling in an external file. Style sheet that designed for the website can be changed from this file. To include the external file or the external styling sheet, you use the link element. Must be used as a reference to the external style sheet in the head. So you have to use the link tag inside the head. See here the head tag here, opening, closing, you add the link, and this link will make the link between the HTML, the current HTML, and the external file that you're using. In that case, in this example, they're using file.css. You don't have to specify the type, by the way. It's fine. You want to specify it, but you already put the relationship here as style sheet. If you add the type here, you're specifying that the type is CSS. You can put text/CSS. You're saying that this is a CSS file. Any question about how you can link the external CSS? Anybody having a problem linking an external CSS? Okay. Internal one, where you can use the style tags inside the head. So for any single HTML file, internal styles can be used. The internal styles are written inside the style section of the HTML page. As you can see here, they putting, this is the CSS code here, where the body of the page, they set the background color to be yellow, and the paragraph, they set its color to be blue. So we have a blue paragraph and yellow background, but they put the CSS not in an external file, however, inside a style tag, that this style tag is inside the head of my page. So all these instructions you're sending to the browser, so the browser now understand how it will render the page, how it's gonna view the page. And of course, the last one is the inline styling, where you can add the style as an attribute. So you put the style attribute equal, then the color, colon, you put any declaration of CSS, and you don't put the curly brackets here. And you can put as many as CSS commands here. You can put the color, you can put the background, as long as they are separated by the semicolon. Okay, now there's something important you need to know. It's called multiple styles and cascading rule. If you're using multiple, or you're using multiple styling in your page, like for example, using an external file and using inline styling at the same time, which one will take an effect? Is it the external file or the inline? And also, if you're using the internal styling and using external, which one will take an effect? For example, yep, you have a question?
And
Okay, go ahead. Shoot, I'm listening. Go ahead. If you have a question. All right, let's say I have a simple paragraph here. And now I want to set its color using inline styling, color to be blue. But also, this is inline styling, and don't forget the semicolon. And here, I'm going to add a style tag. And I'm going to select the paragraph and put the color to be red. Now, which one will take an effect? Is it the inline? I mean, sorry, the internal or the inline? Just guess. A good guess. Which one?
Internal, because it comes first.
Internal comes first, that's correct. So it will be blue, it's not going to be red. It's more specific toward that paragraph. Okay, so you can overwrite any styling that you have by using the inline styling. So it's always go like this. Inline is more priority. It will always take an effect. Second is internal, where you're using the styling tag. And the least priority is the external. So if I have an external file right now with a color of yellow, of course, this will still be blue, this paragraph. Okay, so this is how they run the styling. They start with the inline. This is have the highest priority. It will overwrite any other styling. So let me ask you this, another question. Let me put an example here. Let me add CSS1.css and CSS 2.css. Based on whatever I said, that listing that inline is having the highest priority, then the internal, finally the external. I have two external styling sheets. And I'm going to do paragraph, color, red inside my CSS2, and here, paragraph, color, green in CSS style 1. And I'm going to add an HTML file here. I'm going to call it index.html. So I have two styling sheets. And I'm going to link both of them. So you can link as many as style sheets here. So I'm going to link, press enter, put CSS1, link the second one, put CSS2.css. And now I'm going to have a paragraph. I'm going to call it my paragraph. Can you guess what is the color of this paragraph? So in CSS1, it was green. CSS2, it was red. And now I'm loading first the CSS1, which is green. And here I'm putting a CSS rule to make all the paragraphs red. So the first one, make the paragraphs green. Second one, make it red. And now here's my paragraph. Which one will take an effect?
I think red, because it overwrites the green.
Of course, because it goes in order. This load first, then this load second. Once this gets loaded, it will overwrite the previous one. Okay, and I can show you that, and I can prove to you this theory. And now I have it in red. Now try to swap them, try to move them. Put the CSS2 first. Now you should see it turned to green, right? Because in CSS2 it was red, and then the CSS1 file load, which is having the color of the paragraph to be green. What if I put an inline styling here using the style, color, blue? What will be the color of the paragraph? Is it blue, green, or red?
Blue.
Of course, blue, because inline having the highest priority, it will always overwrite any external files, and it will always overwrite any internal CSS.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
If it wasn't a style tag, would that prioritize it?
Style tag like this?
Yeah, if the links were in a style tag, would it prioritize the links?
Yes.
Or would it still be blue?
It will be still blue. This is the highest.
Okay.
But if I don't have this, and let's say here, the color, the paragraph, color, blue, it will be blue because this is the second priority here. This will always override the external one. This inlining always overwrite external. The external is the least priority one that can be easily override.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. And you can override it in the same file. So if I write a p tag here and I put color green, right? This paragraph now it's green because this was already the past. I updated the value now was green, right? So you can do that as well. But in that case scenario, since I don't have inlining, the internal will take an effect. None of this two will take an effect. Okay, that's what is the multiple style sheet and cascade rules is. So all the styles which are applied to the same element will apply in a cascading order of rules. There is a rule for it. Inline styles have the top priority. The inline is the one that you're using the style attribute. The external and the internal style sheets are finally browser default styles. So inline style will overwrite external and internal styles and browser default. Any browser have its own stylings. If you write a paragraph without any styling, without any CSS, by default it will be black, right? So to change the color using CSS, and if you're using inline styles, it will overwrite the default of the browser, which is the black color, and the internal and the external ones. In the external style sheet, color of the paragraph defined as red. Here they give you an example where you have an external one and you link it with the link tag. This is the external and it says it's red. And you have an internal style sheet, internal styling, we're using the style tag where the paragraph is colored blue. And you have also inline here using the style attribute, you're setting the color to be green. It's not going to be red. It's not going to be blue. It will be green. What if I don't have this? Which color do you think this paragraph will be?
Probably blue.
Of course, it's going to be blue because now the second one in priority will be the internal styling, right? Perfect. I think you guys get the idea of the order, of the cascading order. Of course, this is a typo. It should be green. This is a typo. So the internal color paragraph is defined as a blue, and in the inline style, it's yellow, but it's actually, in the example, it's green. So they're referring to a yellow as inline. So watch out for this typo. Okay, so tomorrow we'll actually explore more properties. Today, actually, we only covered how you can use styling sheet and how you can only use colors, the front color and the background color, or the background color properties. But tomorrow we're going to explore more like how you can set the margins and paddings of an element, and how you can set borders, how you can control the width and the height of an image. All this properties, more properties, they all follow the same syntax. Okay, it's always name and a value separated by colon, and you terminate them by semicolon. Very simple syntax. Any questions before we start our quiz today? See how you guys, how much you guys learned today. Okay, you ready for the quiz?
Yep.
Okay. It's not too much questions. It's 8 questions. Let's start. Code. Let's see. Close. Hold on a second. There you go. So you should go to www.kahoot.it and you have the bin code here. I'm going to paste it in the chat. Eight 240 959. Where's Cool Dev? He was number 1 yesterday. All right, let's start. You can join at any time. What does this tag start? Image source. Good. Image source, of course. The src is short for the source of the image, and it's an attribute. And we got fleas in the first place. Let's see who's gonna get in the first place this time. Which HTML tag create a link that navigates to another web page? Go to URL, link, or the A tag. Okay, it is the A tag, short for anchor. That's, yeah, I would say link might sound like it should be the right answer, but there is no link tag. It's the A tag. We got JD in the first place now. What attribute is used to establish a link? Source. Read the question correctly. href. That's correct. Hypertext or hyperlink reference. Okay, we still have JD in the top. What attribute do you use when coding a link that opens another page in a new window? Good. Of course, it's target. JD is still on the top. What is the alt attribute in the tag used for in the image tag? Specify alternative view of an image. Specify a path of an image. Specifies an alternative file if an image is unavailable. Specify an alternative text for an image. Okay. It specifies a text, alternative text to the image. Remember when I said that the alt, you describe the image as a text? Good. Next. Which is an example of a complete image tag? Which one is correct image tag? This is an easy one. Oh, you need the image here. So number one is definitely wrong. You need the img tag. It's called the img tag, and then you add source is an attribute, the alt is an attribute. Skin is now in the first place. Still have two more questions, guys. What is the missing from this image tag? Look at it correctly. That's correct. The source attribute. Now you see here, they trying to trick you. This is the tag name, and they put the equal sign right away to the tag name. No, you need an attribute, in that case, the source attribute. Okay, Kona coming in the next place. Can I use an image without giving a credit to the website owner of the photo? It's illegal. You should have a copyright for the image.
The wording on that one was kind of weird.
Yes, that's a little bit weird. But again, you remember when I show you that you should always make sure you're using free images. You can't use somebody else images because there's licenses on the images. So you probably license this image and then you can use it, and you gotta go to court. And I have actually one of my friends, he take pictures and he sell them online, and people sell the images. Okay, any questions, guys, before we see who's in the first place? Okay, let's see who went today. JD in the third place. Good job. Kona, good job. And in the first place, Aitken in the first place. Good job, guys. And we have Mary and Tommy in the fourth and the fifth place. Okay, guys, so I'll see you tomorrow. As I said, tomorrow we're going to cover more properties, CSS properties, how you can actually move things around using margin and padding. And then tomorrow is supposed to be, we're going to finalize with the CSS. We're not going to go over so many properties, but in Saturday, we're going to put whatever we learned so far with HTML and CSS in actual small projects to create like a basic portfolio page. Okay. Any question before finish the class today? Okay. You will find, if there's any new students today, there is the GitHub page where we're going to load the codes. Yes, Julie, we have a class tomorrow. That's where we're going to continue with the CSS. And in Saturday, so we have tomorrow and Saturday. Tomorrow, we're going to just cover more CSS properties. And Saturday is going to be like the wrapping project for this mini boot camp. So let me go to, if there's any new students that just joined today and just want to show you in the GitHub, and paste the GitHub link in the chat. So let me open it through Slack. So I'm pasting the GitHub link in Slack where we put all the codes. If you have it in, in the chat, not in Slack, and the Zoom chat right now. That's where we store all the codes. And I'm gonna push this code after the class right away so you can have access to any codes that we develop today. Okay, guys. Have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.